you a nut job. Now a robot has their job. They called you crazy before. Now look who's at your door. They called you.
All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Of course, we have talked about the police stations for quite a while. Now, China is actually talking about the police officers. They, of course, say that China to train thousands of overseas law enforcement officers to create a more fair world order. Yeah, it says that China will train thousands of foreign law enforcement officers so as to see the world is orderous and, of course, develop in a more fair, reasonable, and efficient direction, its Minister for Public Security has said. It says, quote, "We will also send police consultants to countries in need to conduct training to help them quickly and effectively improve their law enforcement capabilities." Minister Wang Zhihong told an annual global security forum. Is something going on like that's just straight up so out in the public where they can just basically say it right now? Now, many people have theorized that even our own country and others that basically that we have been swayed by, of course, this country over there in the East, and that something is happening, that people have, had somebody in their pocket, that they've been doing things that really don't make sense, that our actual culture, our movies, our videos, the way that we think, our moral values, all of it is changing, and it's kind of morphing into the system that looks a whole lot like what it looks like in China. As far as our surveillance state, of course, that is also going in the direction that China already has. You have seen more and more that Western nations, supposed Western nations, have their leaders, like, of course, Canada's Justin Trudeau, or even France, essentially have all of these great things to say about Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping, of course, being the leader of China and, of course, part of the CCP. So this is just wild. It says a patriotic education. It says a forum is part of ongoing efforts by China's ruling Communist Party to position itself as a global security leader. In 2022, China's leader Xi Jinping launched the Global Security Initiative, if that doesn't sound creepy enough, which centers China as a facilitator to, quote, improve global security governance and promote durable peace. Some human rights groups have raised concerns that recent training programs for African police officers introduce Communist Party-style authoritarian tactics and are heavily focused on protecting Chinese commercial interests in those countries, often connected to China's state-run foreign investment program, the Belt and Road Initiative. I have talked about this for so long, and of course, the thing is now that mainstream has covered this, now people will go, whatever, it's just a distraction. Mainstream is covering it. But the fact is, mainstream is covering it about 4 or 5 years too late. That's the thing. There is stuff that is true in the mainstream media. It's just super, super delayed. It's just so freaking late. And that is, there's all these different angles how MSM can really either deceive you, they can omit things, they can cover things extremely late, they can portray something in such a way to really make your mind think. So this is just way too much. We're going to talk about how Russia and China, they're saying, well, if we're under threat, we could combine. We're going to talk about, of course, a huge counterattack that is potentially going on right now. We'll talk about all of that in just a second. We'll be right back right after this. Don't miss it. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
They called you a nut job, now a robot has their job. They called you crazy before, now look who's at your door. They called you a nut job, now a robot has their job. They called you crazy before, now look who's at your door.
All right, what is going on? Remember, you can find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we are going to show you here today over on our website, marfooglenews.com. All you have to do is go to the main page, look for today's thumbnail, coming to a city near you. Everyone needs to know this, and I mean it. Of course, if you've been in this community for a long time, all of you guys already know this. There are some new folks here. Welcome. And again, if you see a new name in chat, again, welcome them in and say hello. I believe about 20 new people joined in the last couple days. So thank you guys and welcome. And then as far as what is happening with China and these police officers, like, this is just crazy. Let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So we covered the police stations, and they say that in almost every NATO country that there was some sort of Chinese police station. Now they're basically putting it out. It's kind of like when, everybody said, oh, there's things up there going across, but nobody, that was all just a crazy theory. Now, of course, government websites are saying, oh, no, that's not that. This is this. We're going to call it geo this. And now, of course, we're going to tell you about it. It feels kind of like that,
Let's not forget that China was actually shopping sort of or selling or pitching the idea of providing security. I remember they were talking to Orban and other countries saying, hey, we could provide security in your country. We could be your police force. We could provide police capabilities. So it's not just about necessarily putting their police officers out there, but also mixing and even getting themselves into positions of authority within other countries. And you gotta look squarely down the line of where they've invested, especially those investments around port cities and things like that, or Belt and Road initiatives, where they actually would potentially have great power from negotiation to come in and say, yeah, you're going to use our police forces, and we're going to bring in resources to help expand your security initiatives.
And there was a comment here. I want to go back to this real quick. Let's see here. Where was that? It says improve global. In the very beginning, it says develop in a more fair, reasonable, and efficient direction. We also send police consultants to countries in need of to conduct training to help them quickly and effectively improve their law enforcement capabilities. Well, that is one thing that they probably could give some advice on. One thing that I don't think we could argue is that China does have a really good grasp on their people. In fact, they have every single person tracked and traced. There's, of course, video facial recognition everywhere you go. Your cell phone is attached to your social. It is essentially your number. When your phone number is you. So if that phone number goes missing, like it did back in 2020, that person's probably gone. That's what's really freaky about this whole thing is we've been talking about the Belt and Road Initiative and how they've gone to these poor countries. They say, hey, yeah, we can give you this loan that you'll never, ever be able to pay back. Oh, and you can't pay us back. Okay, well, we want to be able to get payback in some form. Well, we want to put commercial interest there. And then since we have commercial interest there, we want to be able to protect those commercial interests. We want to have our army or military there. Sounds a whole lot like, what the U.S. has done in the past. And of course, I said that they were taking notes from the U.S. this whole time. They are trying to copy U.S.'s success. Not only that, they are massively creating, some of the biggest militaries in the world. They have the largest navy in the world now. They are working on the largest air force. They're working on basically coming into, what is that word? Basically, they want to be at the very same level as the United States in nuclear weapons in just a short few years. So what are they really doing here? Well, I think it goes back to my theory that I've been saying for a long time, and I bet you MSM is going to start covering it, and people are going to go, oh, that's fake because it's on MSM. But we've been saying it for years. This community has been talking about how all of these things really start to look like they're adding up. And I don't know if China's the actual head of the world, that is trying to push this. It might be oligarchs above them. It actually might be that he is the one who is put at the top of the table, and they're saying, hey, these guys actually could make what we want to happen with these draconian measures. To make you think about some of the things that they have said that they want to change by the year 2030. Almost all of these are things that people are not only going to push back on, but they're things that people say they never want, ever to happen. In just a few short years, we are going to have our cars remotely stopped by police. They will be able to push a button and remotely disable your car. And if they don't have the ability to, then definitely the government will be able to. Under this whole new thing that is for our own safety, for drunk drivers, they're going to put these remote, off switches. From things like this to all sorts of other ways that this is coming into play. It is exactly what our community thought. Everybody said that you were crazy when you told them this, and now they all called you a nut job. And very soon, look who's knocking at your door. Not to mention the crazy number of people from that country, nationals from that country over there in the East that are coming in. That number has gone so insanely far up that it cannot be explained away in, oh, well, they're just looking for a better life. You're talking about it goes from like 3,000 to like 12,000 to like 30,000. I mean, it's nuts. In the same time frame, just over the last couple years, all of a sudden, we have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of military-age men from the East coming in droves, and there's tons of evidence to back it up. So I think that that's pretty nuts. And there's actual data by the Border Patrol. All right, and then Dex, let's talk about the new ballistic missiles Russia just got from its pariah partner, Iran, will give it more flexibility with its own missiles. Before I do go to that, I do want to shout out, thank you. UFO Disclosure TV says, hey, Marf, Dex and Fugel fam just wanted to show some love before my coffee break is over. Graveyard shifts suck. I did the graveyard shift for 3 or 4 years, and that's back in my early 20s when I drank Monsters and Red Bulls and destroyed my innards. I hated graveyard shift, and of course I'm sure you probably do too. You wake up, nobody's awake when you're awake. All of your friends are, you're sleeping when all of your friends are having fun. Nathaniel Williams, hey, watching from Iowa, love the show so far. Nathaniel Williams, hey, thank you for the support and welcome. You should seriously talk to some of the Fugel family members. Make sure to go over and check the mods out. All of our mods, of course, can direct you to all sorts of great creators in our community. That is over at marfugelnews.com/friends. You got a lot of resources around you to find out awesome information. Dex, so what is up with the new ballistic missiles?
Okay, so basically, as we had mentioned in the prior show, they have now said that the missiles being used in UK are coming from North Korea. It's the newest batches that have been built. So Russia is clearly using them, and they've also got the ones coming in from Iran. That's the other one that is, they confirmed that those were going in from Iran as well. So that purchase. Now, what they're suggesting here is that potentially these ones coming from Iran give it more flexibility to then decide how much of their own missiles that they have, in addition to the ones they're getting from North Korea and from Iran, to use and potentially not use and save, which I guess is the point we've often made. They just made they just did the massive counterattack on the incursion in Kursk. So they made they made a 6-mile push against UKR. They're coming in from the north and the west and pushing UKR out of that area, accomplished 6 miles in a day. And some are suggesting they'll probably pinch them off all the way around and then they'll be stuck. So between this massive offensive that they've got going now to reclaim the land and the massive number of more missiles and munitions they've got, they are in a position to, I guess, be much better off than they were. And as Kirby is suggesting, this is mostly pointed at Iran for sending those missiles there. They're bad, and they shouldn't be doing that. So we'll talk about sanctions, or we'll talk about whatever response we're going to have from the West. But what it means for Russia is they now have a greater arsenal, and they can decide maybe to hold back some of the missiles they were using that were more important for them to use potentially in a war with NATO.
Imagine seeing something like this in person. Now, there's a lot of military in our audience. If you are new here, like Nathaniel, awesome. Super glad to bring in some new folks here. Make sure to talk to our chat too. You've got a lot of active and retired military here. If you are active or retired military, just understand that you have really great people around you. You have people around you that understand what you are going through or what you went through. Again, I never claim to know what some of the vets in our country are going through, or in any country, mind you. But we do appreciate you here, and thank you for your service. I do hope that over time we'll just keep getting more and more active and retired military folks here, because honestly, I just talked about this over the last week. I really feel like this whole last week of debates and all this, it's just turned the whole thing into a circus, especially with the 13 families, all of this. It's like, honestly, I'm super surprised they're not talking more about what they're going to do with the vets and how they're going to actually, try to help these people out. You look at a huge chunk of our population that is homeless right now, and a ton of them are now veterans that, everywhere else they say, hey, you're heroes, you fought for our country, but yet you're falling through the cracks left and right. It doesn't seem right, and I know a lot of you guys agree with me. It's just not right at all. All right, and then China's cloud experiment leads to unexpected 76 miles per hour storm and flying underwear. Yes, you heard that right. Now, this is cloud, and of course, I'm going to say seeding separately here, because do you remember when this was completely, well, first of all, it was a real thing. Vietnam, we actually did it. It made it into a muddy mess, but people have claimed that stuff like this has been happening for a very long time. Now they call it engineering. But of course, China recently launched a not-so-secret submarine to spy on the U.S., and now they've launched a cloud missile to help combat a heat wave. A storm of underwear erupted in the megacity of Chongqing, which was targeted with artificially created rain last Monday. The human intervention into the persistent dry weather resulted in the gusts of 76 miles per hour, blasting residents' laundry from their balconies in what was been humorously referred to as the 9/2 Chongqing underwear crisis, reports the Daily Star. It said that videos of undergarments soaring through the sky before crash landing on the streets and tree branches were shared on Chinese social media as the skies opened up. Thiel, a resident of Xiqing, posted on Weibo, "I just went out and it suddenly started to rain heavily and underwear fell from the sky." You can't make this up. Like, this is, this is like, it's just like, what is, we are literally living in some sort of, sitcom right now. And then, of course, it says that the owner of the expensive The owner of the expensive Calvin Klein set that was swept away in the storm asked, "Who's going to compensate me for my emotional damage?" Emotional damage. One Weibo user humorously suggested that the wild storm could spark a romance, joking it's actually quite romantic. You might even pick up your crush's underwear while taking a walk on the street. It just sounds weird. Another victim of the blown away underwear admitted to laughing like crazy despite the incident turning him into a lifelong introvert. They have a weird sense of humor over there. Like, underwear starts flying and they're just having a great old time. Super side note, but isn't it funny how different countries have just such different senses of humor? Like, British humor is super different. European humor, a lot different. Like the Benny Hills, kind of shows compared to, if you look throughout history. Indian humor, I just do not understand, and Indian movies in general. But yeah, I guess, to each its own. Now, before we move on, make sure to go check out marfooglenews.com/EMP. Devices like this, and of course affiliates like this, end up helping us. We're on our own. We're completely independent. We don't have a multi-channel network. We are, again, running this, the two of us and our volunteer mods. Again, if you do want to support us and protect yourself against not only an EMP strike from any of our adversaries, but also a Carrington-level event from the sun, go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. Make sure to use the code MARF. Not only are you going to get $50 off when you do that, but you're also going to help our independent channel at the same time. This device can ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it can fry your device, fry your cars, your trucks, motorcycles, boats, pretty much anything that runs, including generators, before it is able to fry it. Now, it also works against, again, a Carrington-level event from the sun. If you have followed the solar events of 2024, we are heading into 2025, which is also predicted to be one of the craziest solar cycles ever. We are in solar cycle 25, and out of all of these cycles, they've actually found cycles within cycles, and they believe we are actually at one that may be the craziest cycle in 400 years, and we may be looking at, they looked at certain events, and they believe that this very well may be the cycle that we get some sort of huge hit to Earth. I sure hope we don't. But there are devices that, if you do want to protect yourself, be able to go home to your family or bug out to get out, this device will allow you to do that. Not only that, it will protect your generators and anything that's important that is your backup power. Also, go check out if Energy does not have, if EMP Shield or Energy doesn't have the Energy version of the EMP Shield, check both websites. Again, you can find one on the other and the other on that. So that is, again, marfooglenews.com/EMP. Make sure to use the code MARF. All right, Dex, let's go over the Houthis' claim to down 3 U.S. drones in the past 72 hours.
So a couple of nights ago, we talked about one. This is like a $30 million drone. It was shot down by them. They had claimed it was. They claimed it was a U.S. Of course, the DOD didn't acknowledge it yet. But it turns out they've actually taken 3 down in a 72-hour period. And this makes a total of 9 drones that they have taken down. So that's a lot. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of, and obviously they've got a lot of technology that is able to reach pretty high into the sky there and take out these drones. It's not just your shoulder launched SAM or something like that. These are obviously, they're dealing in a much greater level of sophistication to have such success against our drones. Now, on one hand, this is very costly to us, and on the other hand, what are we doing about it? And are we just going to keep flying them if they're going to keep taking them down? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And sure, it's great that they're drones and they're not full of humans that can lose their lives, but it doesn't seem to be making a lot of sense that we've lost 9 now from that group.
And again, one of the things it said there in a video statement released by the Houthis, Suri emphasized that this was the second drone of the same model shot down within 3 days, and the 9th drone in total since the Houthis, quote, officially joined the Palestinian cause. It says, as in previous statements, Suri declared that the Houthi forces would continue to act until the attacks stop and the blockade on the Strip has been lifted. Of course, GAZA. So, by the way, let's go over to chat real quick before we move on. Let's do a quick roll call. So I already see a lot of awesome people in here. Hey, thank you. And thank you, by the way, if you're on your break or if you're listening on earphones, UFO Disclosure TV. Seriously, thank you so much for your support. I'm super happy that your channel is growing and that you're getting your a new start again. Kuromiko. Hey, Marf. Hi. Nice to see you. Isaiah Bender. What is going on? Isaiah. Beautiful. Great name there. Straight out of the Bible. Tommy Driver. Daniel Sen from Saskatchewan. Nice to see you. My own private drive. Was that Idaho? Country Boy. What is going on? Ohio in the house. We've got the OHIO. And then, of course, Bobby Sue. Hey, Foogle fam. Love ya. Celtic Warrior, Mir 504, Rapture Ready. We've got Poco Loco, Sunstar, Brian Knight, Fatty DeBoomba, Occam's Razor. I think, Fatty DeBoomba, are you relatively new? And then Mercy of God. What is going on? Mr. F, Lincoln Pork, Harley Berg, Fildo, what is happening? And then, of course, Laura Griffith. Nice to see you. Barbie Burns. Almost all of you, I recognize everybody's names because I read them every night. I also do the shoutros. So I do, when I see new names, it's really, really awesome. So can't say thank you enough for, of course, just being here in the first place and giving us your time. And honestly, time is valuable right now, especially with everything going on. So thank you for giving it to us. I appreciate that. And then See Her Think from the Niagara Frontier. Beautiful. And then thank you, Wolverine, Rambo's Granny, Zadizia, Velma Helker. Thank you. And then Sully's World, Donna Honey. There's so many more. Ilea, thank you so much. Celtic Warrior. Again, James McGowan. You the Pimp, Idaho. Colonizer. All right. And then Russia begins massive naval drills together with China. Dex, so first of all, we've kind of talked about how this was going to be done. Now we, of course, covered on news. Can you sum up what they also said on news as well?
Yeah, so this is a big, one of the biggest drills. We announced it a couple days ago when they said that it was coming. But here, listen to this. It's 120 planes. It's 400 warships, submarines, and support vessels, and 90,000 troops. It sounds very much like the large NATO exercise that carried on for, I don't know, about 4 months in Europe. This is called Ocean 24, and it's going to span the Pacific and the Arctic Oceans, the Mediterranean, the Caspian, and the Baltic Seas. So this is actually going across a lot of areas. It sounds like it may be a lot, and they're not going to just be shuffling this entire 90,000 troops from each of these areas. It's probably going to be troops in all of these different areas working together. But, you know, when you take comments from Russia where they say, you know, look, if we can combine with China, they're showing it right here. You know, that the specific statement they made was, you know, we can, Russia says it can combine with China if they face a threat. It said that I'd like to remind you that Moscow and Beijing will respond to double containment by the United States with a double counteraction coming from the foreign ministry there. So this is all coming at the time that these large, massive drills are happening. You even have Japan, you know, raising their eyebrows as these ships, all these warships are moving closer and through their areas, especially combined together with Russia and China. That's happening. So we'll be paying attention. Of course, it's just, you know, as they call it, it's just drills. It's just drills until it's not, right?
Yeah, and as far as just drills, so Okikon says saber rattling, right? Saber rattling is saber rattling until it's not. One of my thoughts is that it will be saber rattling, right? Until all of the framework is built for World War III. I know that not all of you agree with me on World War III. I believe World War III has already started. It's just not in the hot phase. All of these actions happening, heck, our culture changing, I believe that's part of it. I think that what is happening right here with our own gov, what happened in the last 5 years, that, of course, is part of it. What happened in 2020. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I think that is actually incorporated. And now, in this day and age, think about how they used to keep secrets back in the JFK days. Think about in the high-tech world. Think about how crazy, they were with their operations that they were doing back in the 60s before we had computers. Now imagine what they're able to do now. How would they keep things secret? A lot of people just don't think, like, how would you keep something so massive secret? Like, all of these things are going on in a day and age where everybody has the internet. Well, the thing is all of the theories that we talk about are out there. But that's the thing. There's so many theories of so many different things that it's just like, it's hay. And the real thing is the needle, right? And you're looking for a needle in the haystack. But when you actually look at it, it's like, it's pretty clear what is actually happening. You just kind of have to go with your gut. Truth Lady says peace. I don't know if you're saying bye or you want peace. I want peace as well. And I hope that World War III, in my opinion, is not the end of the world. I believe it is how it is going to, the world is going to bring in a new system, a new money, a new set of rules, a new monitoring of all of us. That is what I believe it will be. I do believe we'll lose a lot of people, but I do not believe it's going to be a mutually assured destruction. I don't think that any of that's going to happen. I think it's going to be EMP because nobody actually perishes right off the bat from it. Nobody actually directly perishes. Up to 90% of our population could perish if in the first year, if it continued, but I don't think it would be that long because I think that, if our power went out here, if the power went out in several places, that something would be, taking its place. And I think that we're going to be surprised when all this stuff goes down. It might not be the usual suspects, or even if it is, I don't think that they're going to be the actual ones in charge. If you look at how the framework has been set up between these countries, all of the countries that have kind of been talking about China like they're a great thing, when China, in theory, is a horrible country. And I know there's people here from China or that may have lived there. You probably have a totally different opinion. But I don't think I will ever see eye to eye with somebody who says, oh, no, it's great to live there. When they do track you as close as they do. When they do punish the way they do. When they don't allow you to speak. That is not a place I want to live. I don't care how nice they are or, it's actually not as bad and it's all Ganda that they talk about. And I'm only saying this because I always get these comments, and to be honest, I think it's either bots or one of those cell phone farms saying it, or it's somebody that's either been brainwashed, or is somebody that's saying, hey, it might be bad, but it's not as bad as you think. I personally don't want that, and what they argue is, well, that's already what's happening, right? You are already being tracked and traced. They're just not telling you about it. At least China is honest about it. I don't think that that's an answer either. Honestly, I think that people shouldn't accept that as an answer. I don't think that people should accept that we're losing every right, left, and right. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. As far as, peace, this World War III, these drills, I don't think they're going to be saber rattling forever. And I honestly do believe that, not everything is what we think it is. Maybe they might end up being on their heels, or maybe this is part of the plan. Maybe they're going to make it look like they're on their heels and then they fight back. There's going to be some sort of big event. I think that they're heavily setting up for Russia to hit Ukrainian soldiers, possibly with NATO military contractors or even U.S. soldiers secretly there or something. They hit them with a tactical nuke or some of these new missiles, something takes out a bunch of them, and then there are calls for war. or if they take out the Ukrainian soldiers, but it happens to be close to, schools or something. I don't know, though, because it is in their own country. What do you think is going to happen with all of this? I think that North Korea might actually have the secondary trigger. This could be the trigger, or Iran and Israel could be the trigger for World War III, or it could be all of the above. Right now, though, with all of these ships and all of these things basically in all of those different oceans, I would highly recommend at least have something in your brain open-minded to the fact that what if something does happen? They have told us that China is lying in wait in our infrastructure, waiting to attack us. You have military-age men coming across the border. They have been buying up farmland right next to bases. They've been sending over spy stuff all over. And then, of course, now they're doing these drills. They're practicing taking out our carriers. They're practicing taking out our airfields. And then on our side, we're actually practicing landing jets and Hercules on highways. It's like, it really seems to me like we're preparing for a first strike or something where we're not going to expect it. And when this happens, it's going to go down. But look at this. Any drill can turn into the real thing. What if they get into place and then there's people already in place, something is triggered, EMP goes off, all of a sudden our military is spread out all over the world, Iran takes action, Russia takes action, North Korea versus South Korea takes action, China takes Taiwan, Venezuela takes Guyana. They all take their golden prize at the same time. What do you guys think about that? Let me know. And then when the U.S. isn't around, they replace the U.S. dollar with whatever currency that BRICS is working on. I don't know. It seems like it would be logical. And then Norway's spy chief sees Russia more likely to attempt sabotage. Dex, let's go over this one.
Yeah, so basically they're looking at the history, and like a year ago they didn't look at something like gas and major crude being a potential target, but now it looks like it is, and that was never the case. So that's changed. And by the way, Norway is Europe's largest gas provider and a major crude oil exporter. So when they look at things like sabotage happening throughout Europe and they're suggesting that Russia's doing it, they are now raising the level of a likelihood that sabotage is going to be a tactic used by Russia towards somebody like, Norway or other countries in Europe. And specifically, and this is coming from the Vice Admiral Niels Andres, the head of the Norwegian Intelligence Service. So, their version of a three-letter agency, but putting out that what they're seeing and what they understand is that sabotage is the path that they're preparing for, and they look at their large gas infrastructure and supply that they provide as being the prime target.
Yeah, and when you start hitting the major resources, this is where also wars happen. Somebody says something about hearsay. I don't know if you're referencing to what I like my little theory. It is my thing is just a theory, but again, I am basing it off of just everything I've covered. Well, here's the thing. I'm not a super genius. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I do have eyes. This is current events from a prepper's standpoint, specifically us as preppers. And I have also covered all of the current events pretty much every single day, if not at least 5 days a week, if not 7, for many, many years. For now, 7 years, 6.5 years, something like that. And I have kept up with this, and it's hard not to see a pattern. All of the names here that have been here all the time, you guys know who you are. I mean, Celtic, pretty much every name I see, except for like Mock Freak. Thank you, Trinity, for welcoming another new person. You guys see the patterns too. They make fun of people like us and say, oh yeah, you see the pattern. Or they've been cracking jokes and putting memes like, do your research, right? Well, research is kind of useless in a day and age where there's so much fake info out anyways. And yeah, you could do your research. But again, research, there is research that is something that can be provable. There is something called science, which they want to ignore it now, of course, because science is something that you can test, you can repeat, that kind of thing, right? But they want to get away from that because, of course, sometimes it doesn't go along with what they're trying to do in the political realm. With all of this, everybody has their own theory on what's going to happen. But time and time again, this community has been right. And what I have just communicated is not just my view, it's many others. This community has called it time and time again. Because the pattern is really simple to see at this point. It's just that you have to really wrap your head around pretty much the opposite of what the media is telling you at all times. That doesn't necessarily mean that if they put out MSM that you believe the opposite. A U.S. Navy submarine packed with Tomahawk missiles is at last in the Middle East a month after it was ordered there to deter Iran. A heavily armed U.S. Navy submarine has finally entered the Middle East about a month after ordered to the region. So it took a month to get there, and now the guided missile submarine USS Georgia has transited into the U.S. Central Command Area of Responsibility. And it says that Pentagon Press Secretary General Pat Ryder told reporters at a briefing. The Georgia is an Ohio-class vessel armed with about 150 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles, bringing a significant amount of firepower to the Middle East. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin ordered the Georgia to CENTCOM region last month in a signal of support for Israel and a show of force from Iran. So, to Iran. Now, it's crazy how big these submarines are that they can pack 150 Tomahawks, and of course they have you have your torpedoes and things, all of the other things that these things can fire. I don't know. Do any of you guys know that are Navy in Ohio class? Can that do nuclear weapons? And then can it do 150 Tomahawk missiles and launch a nuke, or is that a totally different kind of sub? Dex, do you know? Something like the Ohio, it just seems like the space it would take up in a thing like that. That's insane.
I believe they originally can carry up to 24 submarine launched ballistic missiles, but it sounds like this one, or at least they're telling us this one, was packed with 150 of the cruise missiles, so Tomahawks, the land attack missiles. So 150 is quite a bit, and it sounds like that's what they've got this one packed with, as opposed to filling it full of long-range ballistic missiles, which would take up a lot of space and not be used, obviously.
Now, any Navy, can you tell me, and I'm sure people can Google this if you want to, but how many can they shoot at once? Like, how many tubes are there? In a simpleton way to put this, like if you have a firework at 4th of July, or at least what 4th of July used to be. Here you can't even get fireworks anymore. But those like square box, tubes that shoot out things, right? 16 by 16 or whatever. Is it like that? Or is it just a couple of tubes and they load it up like a bullet, one at a time? How many can they launch at a time? Can they launch 6 at a time? Or is it like, a belt-fed thing with giant, huge Tomahawk missiles that just go do they have to load them all individually and they launch straight up? I guess I'm more fascinated by like how they actually make these submarines. I just rewatched U-571 about the whole submarine, that the supposed story about the whole submarine that went and got the communications machine from the Germans, from the U-boats. I'm pretty sure that was based on a true story. But yeah, how many can it do? 12 MIRV W-76 or W-88. 12. Jeez, that's insane. And then experts find NASA is in major trouble. I bet some are cheering that on. Before we go on to that, make sure to go check out Jace. If you take a regular medication, this is the Enigma. That's right, the Enigma machine, Kurt Birksdale. But if you have a regular medication, this is a great service because you can actually get an up to a year extended supply of your regular medications. That's what the Jace Daily, that's kind of the bigger thing that some people go for. And that means that if the power goes off tomorrow, there's no pharmacies, there's no hospitals, you'll have an extra year. Again, once you get it, you can actually rotate your normal prescription in and always have a year. At least for an entire year, you'll always have a year extra supply. So lights go off, you've got that supply waiting for you. That way, if you can't get that, you can go that route. Now, of course, you can get the Jace Daily or you can get the Jace Case. That has all of the most common antibiotics. All of us know that a tiny little cut can turn into a funeral if you don't have it properly treated or if the wrong thing happens. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that Bob Marley perished because of a toe cut from playing soccer barefoot or something. I have no idea if that's true, but I could see that happening in general. You could get MRSA, you could get all sorts of stuff. But again, with this, even if there's no hospital or pharmacy, having antibiotics is a big deal, especially if we go to conflict with China. China makes 97% of all active pharmaceutical ingredients in the antibiotics. And of course, they make 93 or 95% of all antibiotics, which is absolutely nuts. So we still have not fixed that. Go to marfuglenews.com/Jase, Jase. Code MARF, once again, will get you not only a savings, but will help us as well. It helps support our growth, and again, helps us, again, grow in this community. So thank you guys. We appreciate it. Dex, let's talk about NASA being in trouble.
Yeah, so this report comes out. It's called the NASA at a Crossroads. It was, that's the title of it. It was at the behest of Congress and the National Academies of Science put it together. And basically the gist comes down to, with all of the private sector growing in the space area, NASA just doesn't look pretty anymore. Like, people aren't wanting to work there. They're wanting to leave. They're having a hard time keeping top talent. And hiring innovative and creative engineers, because those are all going to other initiatives, whether it be something cool like Space Force, if you could get in there, but also SpaceX and Blue Origin and all the others. And they look much more enticing. And they're basically saying that NASA could be on the brink of basically becoming, obsolete because they don't have the talent to do anything innovative. They even go on to talk about how crazy it was that NASA went and worked with Boeing to get the Starliner built and launched, and they launched it, but they had to then get SpaceX to fly the crew back because the Starliner just didn't work out. And they're suggesting, it's going to continue to have trouble hiring creative engineers that are not working on their own projects, but they're trying to oversee projects from other companies. And then when you even see those not work out, kind of like Boeing did. So that's the gist of the report. I'm sure there's a lot more detail in there, but the highlights are basically NASA's at the brink of potentially, not being much of what it used to be anymore. And I think a lot of people would sort of, maybe welcome that change.
They say that, but there's always going to be a spot for never a straight answer, right? Yeah, I mean, it's sad. And the whole Boeing thing, the partnering with Boeing, and Boeing has now been thrown under the bus for a year now. It still doesn't make sense to me. You guys know. You can, of course, talk about it in the chat, but I've talked about it many times from being from Washington. Everybody here, Boeing had a great reputation for my entire life. All of a sudden, they have a crappy one. Seems to me like it's just definitely weird. All right, and then Carlton Sutton, thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Thank you, Nathaniel Williams. I appreciate that. UFO Disclosure. Appreciate the support as well. And then over on DLive, I want to say thank you, Aunt Jenny, Badger1. Thank you for gifting out a sub to Skyhouse. Skyhouse, thank you. Kimbria, appreciate that. Thank you, Chance, for holding it down over there. And then thank you, Jammer. Thank you, of course, Trinity, again, for modding. And then thank you, Wages. I thought I saw you in here. Is that true? And then Karen Watkins, thank you for subscribing. Appreciate that. And then Power Back On, North Seattle outage affects about 18,000 customers. Now, if you haven't seen the video we just did, I talked about, of course, just to summarize, we lost internet at our home at the exact same time at 1:20 in the morning. At the same time, all of our phones went into SOS. To briefly explain, 5 different SIM cards, 3 different, 4 different services. Technically, one is kind of part of the other. Boost Mobile, T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T. One was a hotspot, one was a tablet SIM card. 2 were Apple iPhones, and then 1 was my Android, all of which were not registered on a network as of 1:20. And it's just nuts to me that we lost Xfinity, Comcast, the cable internet, normally gig speeds, all of a sudden goes out, right? Dex, I don't think you jumped in, but so how can you explain to people, this is just nuts that the cables, so say if fiber optics go down, cell phones can go down. And I think a lot of people think that it's going to go up to space and come back down and that something on the ground won't affect that.
Well, you can have a regional outage in like a backhauling area. So when I say backhauling, I'm talking about these fiber areas where they'll take and massively move lots of information, lots of data across fiber. A lot of this stuff will come together in different points, and they'll broadcast it out from those different areas. Well, companies, whether it be AT&T or Verizon or all, may either own those and lease it out, or they may lease it out themselves because they need space on it to backhaul, data from cell towers, from their own internet connections, even from their old school landline systems, which are also converted to digital. All of that happens into those locations. So you could have a single point that could actually take down a region where you would see something like that. But what I don't understand is how they would actually, have everything go to SOS mode. It's one thing if you can't connect and make communications out, but does that actually prevent the cell phone from actually reaching the tower and knowing that there's a connection, and it just gets a busy signal, so to speak, as opposed to it's not registered? That's what's crazy. Like this whole thing that happened in your area, it's really weird. It's possible. We've seen this before. You can see massive data center outages. If a big data center that everybody uses for a lot of services goes down, has a power outage, and its backup power didn't work, you could see multiple companies, whether it be even multiple cellular providers, go down in that region because they're using that data center and they're leasing space in it. And something critical may be there. So that's what's strange is what happened to you guys. But to the cable company, your 3 major cellular providers, I think you named a handful of them, but they basically come down to T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, which have the networks, and then the rest of those companies build off of them. But yeah, have that all go down at once, and the way it did, definitely suspicious.
And mind you, so that brings us to today. They actually said that 200,000 people, basically the entire city of Seattle, they said, the massive power outage, 197,000 customers without power. That was at least what the outage map said. They then said that there was a technical difficulty with the outage map, and they ended up saying that it's not available, whatever else. But then they said that the power was restored. So some people said, there was no outage. By the way, no wind, perfectly sunny day, the middle of the day. This is when all of this stuff goes down. A day after they just released a big piece, big mainstream media news piece on how these 2 neo-Nazi guys that that they're trying to hint that they support one of our candidates right now, that these 2 guys, these supreme guys-ists, that they were trying to take out a Pacific Northwest power station or a substation. and they got caught. This recent arrest. That comes out the day later. You've got this very strange event where they say 200,000 is out of power, that it's a huge blackout. Then they say it's 18,000. It's just doesn't make any sense. So now they're saying it's only 18,000, which actually makes sense. I talked to several people in Seattle. There were people that said businesses in North Seattle, specifically shoreline places up on almost out of Seattle too, out of shoreline, past that in Mount Lake Terrace, said that there was power outages and businesses couldn't take credit cards, things like this. But this all happened, and there's this weird technical difficulty thing that came out, right? I don't know. Something smells fishy about the whole thing. Did they get hacked and they're trying to cover it up? Did the actual outage map get hacked? Now, Dex, that outage map, I'm going to pull up a picture of it, but you said something earlier that I would be good to carry over to this show about how the outage map is live and how it shows what's going on a live basis.
Well, yeah, the way the power companies do this is they take the information of their regional, customers and connections, and then they aggregate that information up and expose it in a map. They make that data available to other people, like poweroutage.us, which is a website you can go to that'll show you all of the aggregate of all the power companies and who has power outages. That's the one that tells you how many outages are in each state, and you can look at. So, that thing is very much a real-time type tool. It's not like they just, call up Sally and say, Sally, update the map and, let's put down 147 people over here. I mean, it's a system. It brings the data together in real time, or relatively close to real time. So for that, it's just suspicious, again, that they said they were doing routine testing. Then that caused the power outage in the area. It was showing 197,000 people that were without power. A lot of people were reporting they were without power. They then come back and said, yeah, it was just a routine testing we're doing. And yes, the power was out. But they also said that the map was also broken and it wasn't reporting anything because it had technical issues. So I don't know. It's very fishy. It doesn't sound right. It's not typical. Typical is, transformer blew out and, we had to reroute power and we had to fix a substation in a certain area. Tree fell on something. That's the kind of stuff you see. You don't see we're doing routine testing during the day and we took the power grid down. Anytime you're doing that kind of stuff, you don't even do it during the peak hours. You do it during the weak hours.
Yeah, the whole thing just smelled fishy, and especially with the pieces that they're putting out, I don't get it. I saw a comment. What was that? Rick Johnson, you still didn't answer the question. Is that to somebody else in chat? If you have a question, go ahead and ask. Bobby Sue, 10-4 rubber ducky, watch your 6 for them Smokies. We've got Harley Berg, Donna Martin. Walla Walla was out of power today from 9:15 to 4:30 p.m. That's the time period. And you know what? People are still reporting this as of right now. The taping of this show, people are actually covering this still. And they're basically covering it as if it is 197,000. So what if it does spread? Rick Johnson, 23 years later, 911, and people are still learning the truth. Redacted 911. Are you saying that show talking about it? Oh yeah, I've covered it pretty much every year. Mind you, at the end of the show, I wanted to say, of course, a prayer for everybody that has family that perished today. Now, it is so insane to think about this. Is that 23 years ago? 23 years ago. Obviously, every year, especially about 3 years ago at the 20th anniversary, I remember covering, sitting here exactly 3 years ago, and everybody was really worried that there was going to be a massive event. But of course, a lot of those events that everybody gets hyped up about, it doesn't, happen. But today, gosh, if you were going to do something, here's my thing with people in attacks and groups. I think that they would create a new day. That one already lives in infamy. I think that they would pick a different day. I don't think that they would do an anniversary one, and you rarely do see the anniversary ones. You actually see brand new days that would have some sort of other significance. But do you guys agree with that or disagree? Rick Johnson, again, if I couldn't find a question.
It was in chat. I'm saying his question was to people in chat. It was not to you.
Oh, I get you. Are you a politician? Let's see here. And then Ryan Alter, Danish girl, the Viking Queen. Good to see you. Good to see you. I agree. Good to see you, Danish girl. RTube7, Prepperman, Angel Wings. Nice to see you. Thank you for being a member. White Roses, Harley Berg, Mir504, Nickel Wise. Thank you. Juby Joe. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know. One thing that I will say about 2001 is it did feel like it was yesterday for a good 15 years, but it really does feel like it's been a long time ago now. I think it felt like 15 years before it really started to fade away. And I don't have family that perished in that event. I know people, and we have extended family and extended friends of the family that have lost people there, but I did not personally. So I'm sure to somebody else, it would be a lot fresher in their brain. If you don't know about that, I think there's a lot of youngins that just have no idea. And I don't think it takes more than one day to really learn about everything that went wrong. And it really is the root of why many of us are sitting here right now. I would not be sitting here doing this show if it wasn't for a grassroots campaign by AJ. It wasn't him himself. It was his volunteers. At that point, he had volunteers or people that were just getting his stuff out. It was 2 burned DVDs. One was Loose Change. I can't remember what the other one was, but I brought that home. I watched it on like a DVD player that could watch burned discs. And I just remember being blown away by all of the stuff that it was put together. And, people would look at that, oh, well, they just made it look like this and that. No, there's certain things about it that you can't make it look like something else. There were experts, there were people that really chimed in. I mean, it really is one of the biggest cluster in our entire history. So if you don't know the truth about it, I don't know if we'll ever know the actual truth, but I will say this. Most people know that we don't know the truth. All right. Thank you again. Thank you, M. St. G, by the way, for the super thanks on the last show. A couple new members here. Thank you so much. Alvanita, Stephanie McDonald, Martin Moore, Lord Malphus, and then Isaac the Hermit. Thank you. And then Carlton Sutton, again, thank you. Nathaniel Williams, and UFO Disclosure TV. You might be at work, but either way, you're getting a shoutro. Dex, thank you so much for your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And make sure to go check out Nutrient Survival if you want quality freeze-dried food. Again, this is one of the foods that we actually recommend if you want the substance. This one is the one we would pick. It has, again, 6 times more nutrients than other survival food. It is a really, really, really quality freeze-dried food brand and very well organized, color-coded. Like everything about this is efficient. It was special ops grade survival food. It was actually designed by multiple special ops that actually started the company. So again, go check it out, marfuglenews.com/nutrient. Save 15% off with the code MARF. Again, thank you guys for doing so. There's multiple companies we actually recommend. We don't just recommend one. That is because they are all good for different things. So make sure to go check out Nutrient. That is not just surviving, that's thriving. So go over and check it out, marfuglenews.com/nutrient. All right, and then Thank you, Dex. I appreciate your service tonight.
Absolutely. Much love, brother. Great job.
And I'm going to end tonight with a moment of silence for those that we lost in 2001 event, which will go down in infamy as one of the worst days in history, but also the least truthful days in history we've ever had. And it is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
They called you crazy before. Now look who's at your door. They called you a nut job. Now a robot has their job. They called you crazy before. Now look who's at your door. They called you a nut job. Now a robot has their job. They called you crazy before. Now look who's at your door. They called you a nut job. Now a robot has their job. They called you crazy before. Now look who's at your door.
Thank you, UFO. Disclosure.